and welcome. My name is Shannon Kemp, and I'm the Chief Digital Manager of Dataversity. We'd like to thank you for joining this Dataversity webinar, How Automating Data Lineage Improves BI Performance, sponsored today by Octopai. Just a couple of points to get us started. Due to the large number of people that attend these sessions, you will be muted during the webinar. For questions, we will be collecting them via the Q&A in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, or if you like to tweet, we encourage you to share highlights or questions via Twitter using hashtag Dataversity. And if you'd like to chat with us or with each other, we certainly encourage you to do so. Just click the chat icon on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen for that feature. And as always, we will send a follow-up email within 2 business days containing links to the slides, the recording of the session, and additional information requested throughout the webinar. Now, let me introduce to you our speakers for today, Amnon Drori and Malcolm Chisholm. Amnon is the co-founder and CEO of Octopai, the BI intelligence platform. He has over 20 years of leadership experience in technology companies. Before co-founding Octopai, he led sales efforts at companies like Panaya, acquired by Infosys, Zen Technologies, and many more. Malcolm has over 25 years experience in data management and has worked in a variety of sectors, including finance, pharmaceuticals, insurance, manufacturing, government, defense, and intelligence, and retail. He is a consultant specializing in data governance, data quality, data privacy, master reference data management, metadata engineering, data architecture, and business rules management execution. And with that, I will give the floor to Amnon and Malcolm to get today's webinar started. Hello and welcome.
Thank you very much, Shannon, and it's great to be here today. So without further ado, let's get going. In terms of the agenda, we've got the housekeeping introductions to start with. Shannon's taken care of most of that. We'll then do a deep dive into how automating data lineage improves business BI performance, and we'll be using the cloud migration use case. That'll be about 30 minutes, and we will have a quick review of the automated data lineage in Octopai, and then we will deal with any questions and answers, and hopefully the audience will ask a lot of questions so that we can dig into those and have a meaningful discussion about just how automating data lineage does improve BI performance. And introductions. Amnon, go ahead and say a few words, please.
Hi, thank you, everyone. Thank you very much for joining. It's a pleasure to have another webinar with Malcolm and share some of the interesting stuff around data. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Octopai. Fascinated about data. We established Octopai 5 years ago. After leading BI groups, at a certain point of time, we felt that technology needs to step in order to make our life much, much easier and better. So I'm all excited to show you what we've got today.
Thank you, Amnon. And this is me. Shannon's already kind of gone over that, so we can skip that. So let's get into our deep dive about how automating data lineage improves BI performance, and we'll be looking at the cloud migration use case. So before we do that, let's step back for a moment and think a little bit about BI and data lineage. And certainly over the course of my career, business intelligence has kind of evolved. In fact, it's expanded. When I think the term first started to be used, it was really just a synonym of report writing, but today it's a lot more. So there's a Wikipedia definition here which you can look up, and it gives you a flavor for the complexity that's involved in BI, the strategies and technologies used by enterprises for the data analysis of business information. BI technologies provide historical current predictive views of business operations. Common functions include reporting, online analytical processing, analytics, dashboard development, etc. But I think what we've seen with BI is that it's incorporating a lot more in terms of working with the data, data management type tasks, and also a lot of processing goes on in the BI layer too. So it's more complex than it was in the past, and the tools have expanded and frankly give people greater power. Data lineage is the understanding of the pathways by which data elements travel within the enterprise, including all the transformations that occur to it. And you can see from our little diagram of data lineage at the top center here that data can travel from a source database. It can go through various mechanisms to transport. It could be ETL, could be SQL scripts, could be something else. Transformations may happen to that data on the way. Then it might go to a target database. So already you're seeing the idea that data lineage is crossing different platforms, different technologies, quite probably in any enterprise. Then it goes into the reporting layer, and that's also part of data lineage. It may just be reported as a data point, but there might well be transformations also happening in that BI layer too, where the data is maybe used to create a completely new data element that doesn't exist as a column in any of the databases. So data lineage and BI are intimately connected, and successful BI does depend on having good data lineage. So data lineage in the past, and there was no Octopai, there was no tools, tended to be much more manual and extremely difficult to do. You had choices. They weren't very good ones. You could use existing documentation. Documentation is not the most exciting things for data professionals or BI developers to do, and it tends to get out of date. Even specifications don't really always remain 100% true to what's implemented once you go through a project. They're incomplete, they're unintegrated, they're at too high a level of granularity. In fact, when it comes to documentation, if somebody doesn't trust a piece of it, they don't trust any of it. So that becomes very difficult. And top-down documentation projects to go and figure out data lineage tend not to work, and they can't be done in an acceptable time frame before the underlying data environment, the data supply chains, change anyway. So that's kind of out of the picture. Manual effort in terms of people going through in a project like a cloud migration to go and manually trace back all the data lineage is just impossible. We don't have enough people to do that. And it's very complex, and we humans are also imperfect. We're likely to miss things or misunderstand things. And so, and also, as we've just seen, data lineage can cross platforms and different kinds of tools. One person may not understand a particular tool in the sequence. And that leaves us with automated data lineage, which is really the only viable option. It has become available recently, and that does match the scale of the problem and the complexity of the problem. So data lineage is going to be needed to understand our BI environment. We're at the data visualization layer is right at the end of this big chain that we're going to have to think about as BI developers, and we want to improve our performance. We want to deliver more BI on time that's more reliable and which our users have confidence in. How are we going to do that? Well, the big use case today is migration to the cloud. And there's a quote here from Gartner about how cloud computing is the new normal. I had the privilege of working on cloud environments a number of years ago when they just got started, and we were actually building the whole infrastructure from the ground up. And it kind of surprised me how long it took the IT industry to align to cloud, because it's so much cheaper, more reliable, and so on. But anyway, this is a tremendous area of IT spend at the moment, and quite frankly, many of the applications or environments that are being re-implemented or migrated to the cloud are to do with BI. So BI is really on the sharp end of this tremendous industry trend. And also at the same time, the cloud providers and others have created new BI tools. So it's not merely a migration to a different kind of storage solution. The tools are different too, and they are, to be frank, they're technically superior. So the value proposition for BI is overwhelming. So this is good for BI developers who wouldn't want to, improve their skills, learn the new technologies, and work in the new and exciting environment. So BI developers are going to be involved in this. I would point out, however, that our use case of migration to the cloud is just one example. It's a huge example, very important example of migrations that happen all the time. Migrations have been with us for a very long time. There's technology changes, for instance, and there's business changes, other kinds of changes that lead us to do migrations. Mergers and acquisitions would be another one where you need to migrate data from one environment to another. These things, migrations are here to stay. So we can think of the migration to the cloud use case as a paradigm for something greater, and there's lessons here for BI developers that are going to help them with other kinds of migrations. What could possibly go wrong? Well, we don't want to have our BI team struck by lightning from the cloud, so we want to do a good migration, and we want to understand in some detail what the needs are and what the opportunities are for BI developers. Well, the first thing is that this is not just a simple technology change. It's much more complicated than people think. So you're going to think, okay, I have to migrate my BI environment to the cloud. I'm going to have to decide what part of the data processing is going to be taken from the legacy. Where does that cutoff occur? And then everything downstream of that is going to be moved into my new cloud environment, where I probably have different kinds of databases and different tools to do data movement, data integration, and then the final reporting step. What is that? So you've got to understand, you've got to master the complexity of the legacy environment. Where am I going to make that cut? What are the legacy flows and processes that are part of my overall BI supply chain and reporting layer that are going to go into the cloud, and how am I going to ultimately replace my legacy reports? You do not want to do a peel the onion analysis with this. You don't want to think that, this is, another project, thinking in waterfall terms of, feasibility, requirements, analysis, design, because that analysis step will kill you. You've got to understand exactly what you're doing quickly and up front. You can't get into a prolonged analysis phase, and people don't often understand how long source data analysis takes. The only way you can be successful and achieve this is with automated data lineage. That's going to give you that picture quickly and up front. You'll discover the complexity, you'll understand the dependencies, and you'll be in a much better position to do the plan for the migration. In terms of planning for the project, again, the greatest vulnerability for all data-centric projects, not just BI-related ones, but in fact all, is this lack of source data analysis. And that's lacking in the planning and execution of the project. You can't migrate what you don't know about. So again, how far back in the data supply chain do you have to go to cut out what you need? What transformations have to happen? So when it comes to the assessment, you need to think about the scope of the migration, tool selection, timeline, resource requirements. Then we go to the project plan. We've got our deliverable definition. It can't be fuzzy or high level. It has to be concrete and granular. You've got to do your sprint planning, the roles and responsibilities, and truly understanding the dependencies. Again, you do not want to fly blind on this. You want to understand what you have today that's going to be migrated in actionable detail. And then finally, the database design, ETL development, and all our technical considerations like report development, code freezes, and so on. All of that, the delivery tends to be better understood in terms of methodology, but the project plan and the assessment can be vulnerabilities in a cloud migration project. So let's dig into it a little bit more. How should we think about this? Well, there is a tendency to do what is called lift and shift, which is just a technical conversion, was what they used to be called in the old days, which is simply to take what exists today and re-implement it in the cloud, which for practical purposes isn't going to be happening because the cloud is actually going to be different to what we have today. And what about improving our performance? That's what we want to do, and improve the BI performance. So one thing would be not to move what you don't need. Now, over time, legacy environments tend to accumulate a lot of dead wood. What do I mean by that? I mean that there's unused columns, unused tables, ETL processes that lead nowhere. And by unused, we mean columns that get created, but they're never used as sources for other columns. They never go into reports. They're just not used. So the question is, why would you move those? Now, in the old days, before automated data lineage, everybody tended to be much more risk averse because you had no way of knowing if something, or almost no way of knowing if something was truly deadwood, if it was truly not used, or if, like, occasionally something was done with it. But now, we don't have to rely on manual judgment and guesswork. With automated data lineage, we can tell that. So we're able to not to discard the objects that we don't need, these unused components. They're not moved to the cloud, and it can be a big saving. Remember, there is still costs associated with the cloud, storage costs and processing costs. So if we have things going on in the cloud that we don't really need, we're going to get charged for them, okay? The meter is running. So we want to have a nice clean migration where we only need to move what we know we need to move, but we have the assurance of knowing that through automated data lineage. And this can improve our performance as BI developers by cost savings and a faster implementation because we've got fewer things to migrate. Data lineage also provides information about data coverage. I think in terms of source data, source target mapping, we understand pretty well what we're doing in terms of semantics, and we can get definitions and all that good stuff. But it's very often somewhat difficult to understand what is the coverage of a data set. So at the top here, we see that we have a global listing of all employees, and that's actually a combination of Canadian employees and US employees. So data lineage there has told us what our data universe is in that data set. And the data universe is the populations of things that the data covers in our data set or in our database. This is important to know because we want to make sure that we're, in this case, migrating employee data. We know what employees are. We understand all the definitions. But we're also confident now we're going to have the Canadians and the US folks migrated to the cloud. The little diagram below is a way of thinking about these data universes. You have to know about them in addition to understanding the semantics of your data. The best way to do that is through data lineage because it goes all the way back to the sources and we can understand what the coverage of each source is, and then the database we want to migrate will be the one, hopefully, where the sources are combined and integrated. Okay? So that's important too, and that's going to reduce risk in our project of having something pop up in UAT where our user business colleagues say, well, what about these kinds of employees? You forgot them. We don't want that. Okay. That brings us on to a more general point, which is often not thought about, and this is the lift and shift versus process optimization. So eliminating unused components is a good thing. Understanding our sources of data and the composition of our data sets is a good thing. But there's often a need for process reengineering as well. These migrations give you a chance for business process reengineering, which was a term that became very popular in the 1990s, but I think has stood the test of time. You're also going to be confronted with technology on the cloud side that doesn't really resemble the technology in the legacy on-premise environment. And we have to think about how to use that technology effectively. And that is going to force us, even from just a technology viewpoint, to change our processes. But the more mature enterprises always understand that with migrations come an opportunity to optimize your data supply chains. That's your business processes in there. Are they efficient? Are they rational? Are we, sending data hither and yon and then bringing it back to where we started from for no apparent reason? Why don't we rationalize our data supply chain? Well, this is your chance, but it has to be planned. It can't be something that you do on the fly as you're going through the project. That won't work either. So business process reengineering in terms of your data supply chain, again, is something that could be done with automated data lineage. You get a picture of how all the data is flowing through all the plumbing of your IT environment. That gives you the opportunity to rationalize things, okay? It might seem that the default position of lift and shift is cheapest and easiest, but in the end, that might end up actually being your most costly option. And it might also get you into trouble when you run into the technical decisions you have to make in the new environment that don't really match the paradigms of the technologies you're leaving behind in the legacy. So again, BI optimization in terms of performance, that is very closely linked to business process reengineering. So let's seize this bull by the horns and actually do it as we go through our migration. Cloud cost optimization is something else that's often not thought about. The cloud in general is cheaper, but it's cheaper if you know how to leverage it. And typically there's different flavors of cloud. Some are low cost, some are medium cost, some are high cost. So low cost is, let's say, for storage that's not accessed very often, for processing that's run infrequently. And then you go up to high cost where you've got storage that's going to be pinged quite frequently, and you've got critical processes that have to run in defined time windows. If you know your architecture in terms of volumetrics, in terms of the processing characteristics in the legacy, you can plan for a better distribution on the cloud in terms of implementation in these different flavors of cloud environment, and that can optimize your usage of the cloud. How are you going to find this information out? Well, really, again, it's only going to be through automated data lineage. So this is something that's important for BI developers to think about and work with, our architectural colleagues to interpret the data lineage in terms of the volumes, the processing loads. And it's, I think, a benefit of automated data lineage that's not always understood. But again, the cloud is different. So let's plan for the cloud. Let's think about what's unique to it and make sure that we're able to leverage the cloud to the maximum advantage for the enterprise as we do our cloud migration. Asset control during the project. Okay, so we've got Bob, Alice, and Joe here all working away on migrating to the cloud. Well, who's doing what with what? If you can identify the objects, the assets that have to be managed during that migration at the most granular level, you're going to be way ahead of the game than rather deal in a project plan that talks in vague generalities about, well, you're kind of doing this, Alice, you're kind of doing that, Joe, and Bob's doing something else, and the dependencies between them. Okay. It also allows you to have better project management because you can see what you've migrated at this most granular level. But again, you're not going to get to that granular level without the data lineage telling you what all of the objects are out there in terms of the data stores, the processes, the transformations, the reports, etc. They've all got to be identified in detail, specifically, concretely ahead of time. So this is definitely going to improve BI performance. It's going to increase confidence in the outcome of the project, and it's going to allow you to do a better project plan and stick to it, rather than hit unknown bumps in the road as you go through the project. And then something that may happen is that what happens if there's things that are left behind. Now, there is a architectural pattern known as the hybrid model, where you've got some things on the cloud and some things on-prem, and I think part of the thesis of what we've been talking about in the migration is that, yes, some things will be left on-premise. However, when you've got a kind of unplanned hybrid, you have maybe run out of steam in your migration, run out of patience, money, resources, and only part of what needs to get migrated has got migrated, or there's unforeseen problems, and you've got data going up to the cloud, you've got all the processing going on in there, now you've got data coming back down again to the on-premise environment, and maybe this wasn't planned real well. You've now got a much more complex environment, and this is going to be much more difficult to control and deal with post-migration issues. If you do not have automated data lineage for this much more complex environment, how are you going to fix problems? How are you going to do maintenance? How are you going to do enhancements? It is not going to be easy. Unfortunately, this is, I guess, been the way in which IT architecture has progressed over the last 70 years or so, of accumulating layers of complexity and not really retiring everything when a new environment is introduced. So again, you've got to think about the legacy and what's left behind. And this tends to mean that automated data lineage is not simply a tool which you can leverage for your migration project, but it's a capability that you're going to need really going forward forever in your overall environment to deal with this complexity. And I think at this point, I have a couple of slides here, and I'll hand over to Amnon, who will then show us a little bit of Octopai, hopefully.
Thank you, Malcolm. As usual, very educational, very informative, very, very valuable. Thank you so much. A couple of things about Octopai, coming from the BI environment for many, many years, specifically after Malcolm shared his view about the BI and the relationship of BI and data lineage. What we wanted to do 5 years ago as we established Octopai is to bring more intelligence about the BI and analytics environment. One of the things that we kind of looked at is BI just an engine to generate reports? Is the complexity is going to grow? How new environments are going to step in and impact the way we work? So at the end of the day, what we wanted to do is to try to understand what challenges are facing BI groups as they need to serve the business with more data availability, but at the same time not compromise on its quality. And for those of you who have been in the BI, every time that you want to move fast, you compromise on quality unless you have unlimited resources, which basically never happens. So there's always this balance of what is it that I can do faster and better, but not compromise on quality. So 5 years ago, we said, well, maybe it's time to get technology to step in. Maybe it's time to move away from manual work in a growing complexity environment that requires more data, different variety of data. More systems are being born into the BI. Some of them are on-prem native. Some of them are cloud native. Some of them had been traditionally in place for the past 10, 15 years. Some of them just being born in the past 3 years. So how can you get everything together and not be far away from the technology available? So what we've done, we looked at the entire business intelligence and analytics systems as one landscape. And what we said is, what if we can take the entire BI landscape? Either we have 1 or 2, 3 or 4 different systems, like one ETL, 2 databases, and one reporting tool, or in some cases where we experience having clients who have 30 and 40 and 50 different BI systems of different vendors. Can we automate the entire understanding of the BI and just get intelligence about the BI that will help us understand what's going on in the BI? So what you see in front of you are 3 things that we've been able to do when we analyze in an automated way the entire BI landscape. And when I say entire, I mean all the ETL systems, the database, the data warehouse, the manual scripts, the store procedures, the analysis services, the reporting tools of different vendors. So when I, as a BI professional, ETL developer, data architect, BI manager, compliance, I can just ask Octopai, can you tell me something about my BI? In this case, can you tell me how the data travels? Or one you know is data lineage. What we've also been able to do with a click of a button using our product is to get another set of insights, the business glossary, the data dictionary, the data discovery that is very much being used. Malcolm mentioned something about, in one of its earlier slides, is when you want to migrate from one system to another, or when you want to migrate from on-prem system to the cloud, and you choose which tables you want to migrate, where are they? How they are being called? Where do they exist? How do I shift them from an on-prem system to a cloud environment? Maybe I don't want to get all of them. How do I find the data assets? Are they replicable? So all this discovery part on one hand, and also have the ability to understand the relationship with different assets as data lineage is very, very important. So Malcolm, if you can move to the next slide, just to illustrate Octopai. So in short, what we do, we provide intelligence about the BI environment, and then you're able to use that intelligence in the form of products. You can see them here as data lineage, data discovery, version management between different sets of metadata, more insights about the inventory that exists in your BI environment, and BI catalog. All of this is possible after analyzing metadata from the entire BI landscape. We're asking our clients to extract and upload metadata so we can analyze it. And you can do it very, very easy. It takes only 30 minutes to 1 hour of your time to run dedicated extractors that we've created especially for extracting metadata, so our clients don't have to spend a lot of time. And within 1 hour, you upload the metadata files, you allow us to analyze it via product, and then 2-3 days later, you get in access and start working. No hidden cost, no IT capital cost, no professional services, no custom development, no manual stitching, nothing. Just allow us to analyze it and get in access. So I believe that the next slide is that I can show the demo, right, Malcolm?
Yep, that is correct, Amnon.
So if I can get the ability to share my screen, I will just go ahead and show you the product. So let me know if you can see it, and if not,
it went away. Yeah, it was working, and then it turned off. So you need to share again. Yeah.
How is it
Okay.
now? Beautiful. So this is our website, our homepage. The reason that I'm showing you some of our clients is simply because if there's one thing that they have in common, and you can see a variety of different industry, is that their BI environment looks something like this, a collection of different vendors that do different things to the data in the different steps of the data movement process. And the understanding of each and every system, what exists in each and every one of them, and how they are incorporated to a single coherent journey of a single data asset is very, very complicated. So how does it work? Basically, it works like this. In this demo, you can see a collection of metadata. The metadata that you see here includes 400 ETL processes of different sources, and they ship data and store it in about 3,100 database tables and views of these sources right here. And there are 23 reports that are generated in these BI reporting tools. They are consuming data from these tables that are storing data by running these ETL processes. In a typical environment, just so you understand, one of our smallest customers have, I think, about 1,000 ETL processes, shipping data to about 5,000 tables and views to 10,000 tables and views, and there's 1,000 reports. We're talking about 5 to 10 billion of data sequences of lineage. And I'm going to take a wild guess. I don't think that a lot of this is documented. And documentation is one of the most painful things within the organization because nobody really invests in that. And in an ever-changing environment, you don't keep up on that. So once you need to generate the data lineage, this is where the clock ticks. You want to bring this lineage as fast as possible, but you don't want to spend so much time in getting that. So let me pick two examples of how the data lineage works, and I'm going to concrete that with one of my migration projects that we've done to helping a client moving away 17,000 reports from an on-prem BI reporting tool to a new one in the cloud, and how did they do that? So let's assume that Malcolm is a business user, and he's looking at a report called Top Product Sales. And you want to migrate this to a new BI reporting tool in the cloud. So first of all, where this report runs, in which one of these tools. So I'm going to go to this section right here, and I'm going to search for Malcolm's report, Top Product. So I didn't have to do much aside of Octopai completes that for me and found this report that in this case runs in the BI, in the Power BI. But what I want to do is which are the database tables and views and ETLs are explicitly responsible for landing the data on this specific report. Because if I want to recreate it in a different reporting tool in the cloud, I need to understand the template of that report, but also find exactly the tables of which I need to re-engage the new report to those specific database tables and views. So I'm going to click on lineage and see what happens now. That's it. What you see in front of you is the following. This report right here, called Top Product Sales, and here is some information about this. It's a Power BI report. Actually gets information or show the information that is stored in these tables. You can get more information about that. So the ability to get orientation about where should I look in and what should I migrate actually is with a click of a button. Here's another link that we've identified that we can tell you that we did not get the relevant metadata, but you should get it in order to complete some of the pictures that you want to see here. So we already identified connections even without the metadata explicitly being sent. Also, you can see that there are ETL processes right here in blue or light blue that are actually responsible for sending and landing the data in these tables. So right now, I know that if I need to create this report in a different tool, I would want to connect the new report into these tables, and I know that these ETLs are responsible to land the data in this report. In one screen, you can see ETLs, databases, and reports. And also, you can see that some of the ETLs and some of the systems are not from the same BI vendor, Informatica, DataStage, and Microsoft. By the way, it's very cool here to see very, very quickly that the round, I would say gray, is an indication there are things that are happening around this specific ETL. In this case, I can immediately see that Octopai discovered that the data that runs through this ETL is actually stored in these tables. So this is actually not a source ETL. It doesn't extract metadata from data source rather than rely on data that arrives to these tables, even though this is a source ETL to this report. But how do these tables store the data, where the data is coming from? So we can continue their journey as back as needed. Controlled, automatic, you can share, you can download, you can copy the link, you can populate this with your colleagues, you can download this to a certain place in which you can set it up. So everything is with a click of a button, which, by the way, you can do it from the report backwards or the other way around. What if you want to change this ETL because you want to migrate from one of your traditional on-prem ETL tools to a new ETL in the cloud? And we've been involved in that recently in the past year. So the immediate things clients did is, what is the inventory of all the ETLs that I have in my system, of which maybe reports are even not consuming data? So we might as well delete that. Let's pick on this one. This low data warehouse, which reports are relying on getting data by running this ETL? How quickly, how accurately, how easily can you know that? So in this case, I'm going to do the lineage forward from this ETL all the way up to the report. So within 2-3 seconds, this lineage that you see here, that in other samples it takes about 10 days to generate, you got it in 3 seconds. And this lineage says the following: this ETL actually is responsible to land the data in these tables by running them through tabular schemas all the way to landing them on these reports. And something cool about these reports is that this report, for example, belongs to one of my colleagues that used that to run in SSRS, while the VP sales might be looking at the sales report right here, and this report runs on Business Object. So the ability to understand the data flow from point to point at any given point of time when you need it, in order to document your migration and to understand what relationship maps do you have that exist. Or maybe you don't want to migrate all of that because maybe no reports are consuming any data from certain ETLs. All of this inventory, analysis, and mapping, and navigation can be done with the click of a button. And again, the only thing you need to do is just spend half an hour to 1 hour of your time. Extract metadata from sources of which you would like us to analyze that for you and upload this to Octopai. This is what our clients do. So with that said, let's pause here for a second and maybe open up to questions or feedback or additional items. Malcolm, you want to talk about?
Sure. I think that, just in terms of the BI performance, again, there's a lot of other things we didn't have a chance to cover today, like for those of us working in regulated industries, it's really important to understand the data lineage pathways, for instance, for risk data aggregation, for reporting capital assets in insurance or investment banking, things like that. There's a whole host of those. But I think we may have some questions. Shannon, do we have questions from the audience?
We do, indeed, and thank you both for this great presentation. And to just answer the most commonly asked question, just a reminder, I will send a follow-up email to all registrants by end of day Thursday with links to the slides and links to the recording of the session. So diving in here, what is the divide between BI and machine learning?
Well, I can take a crack at that. So I think with BI, we are reporting information that, and it's done by, BI developers who are specifying those reports based on requirements from users. Machine learning is more pattern recognition that is done just by computers, where you feed them in a data set and say, here's, 200 columns. This column number 200 is a result. Can you predict that column and its values based on some combination weighting or algorithms based on the other 199 columns? So it's quite different, I think. So they're somewhat different worlds.
Yes, if I can add, BI is, just like you said, is the ability to really get insights and information about the data. In our product, we're using certain elements of machine learning, like the path recognition, decision tree, that enables us to predict and to understand and to make our level of analysis more accurate. So every time that you see a lineage, you can trust that the lineage is accurate based on using machine learning as well.
Perfect. I love it. So in this approach, how does the Data Vault 2 methodology fit into this data lineage approach?
Alas, I'm not up to speed on the Data Vault 2 methodology, so I'm not going to be able to answer this one. I've worked with Data Vault in the past, some years ago, and I've promptly forgotten most of the principles there. So sorry about that, Shannon.
No worries. Let me just move on here then. So how does the platform provide statistics on the number of reports a particular data set object is used and the frequency? And a sub-question to that is how objects are used to create reports manually, for example, in Excel for usage and frequency.
Amnon, you want to take that?
No, you take it, Amnon.
Okay, great. So from our standpoint, the way our software works is that we extract the metadata in its most granular level. And once we get that, we are able to understand the correlation of the different data assets. And the type of metadata that we get is both the business metadata, administrative metadata, usage metadata, and technical metadata. And the combination of all of that enables us to not only understand the inventory of what exists in each one of the BI tools, like how many reports, which users can use that, what was the last time that it got an access. By the way, some of our clients are not even interested in the usage, I would say, metadata, because they have them from their repository. But the combination of different sets of metadata enables us to understand and identify exactly what exists, anything from, as I said, the number of reports, the number of data assets, the number of objects, tables, schemas, widgets, synonyms, SQL scripts, and so on and so forth.
And Amnon, is Octopai available as software as a service? Being a financial institution in Europe, it's a question of there's a chance to use such a service.
So the question was if we are SaaS, software as a service?
If it's available as SaaS, yeah.
Oh, okay. So we are SaaS, SaaS. We run on the cloud. Maybe the question has to do we support SAS, which is a BI vendor. So not at this point. Not because of any technological barrier. We haven't seen that popularity within the clients that we work with, but if there's any specific demand to it, we will definitely be able to support it.
Yeah, I'm guessing there's questions around security and such and is, using it with the regulations in Europe.
Okay, so from security point of view, we work with, as I said, and I showed before, banking and insurance and pharma and healthcare. We haven't failed in any security assessment that was done by any one of our clients. We run on Azure on a regional basis. We have any certificate possible that will ease the mind of the security team of any client. We are in the process of doing ISO 27001 plus NIST, which is very much common in the US. But also, please remember that we're using metadata. We're not using data. We're not analyzing data. We are analyzing only metadata that are structured at this point. And even so, if even the metadata is a sensitive type of data for the organization, we're equipped with any security, I would say, measure that has been required so far, and we'll be more than happy to share more about security measures as needed.
And does this strictly have to have a report as the starting point, and can we select a table or view and pull the lineage?
So the answer is that you can lineage from any point to any point, from the report backwards, from database tables, right and left reports in ETL, from ETL upstream to the report or backwards to the source system. I mean, just navigate as you like. Any object that exists in the metadata that we've analyzed could be a starting point.
And can you show some transformations on data elements?
The answer is yes.
Short and sweet. I love it. So what kind of manual documentation and tracking of existing reports required prior to automation? Does the system have the capability to connect automatically to those systems, identify existing content?
So if the question has to do with content as another word for data, the answer is no. As I mentioned, we are analyzing metadata, not data.
Yeah, I would jump in on this one a little bit too, Amnon. I think that existing documentation for data lineage is very often, I've noticed this in the past, it's like inconsistent. An arrow on a Visio diagram might sometimes mean a flow of control, other times it means a flow of data. It's the same shape, color, everything else, you can't tell. There's a lot of inconsistencies when people do their own sort of notation for diagramming.
Right.
And also, again, if there's been manual harvesting of, let's call it metadata, people miss things. They're not going to be as rigorous as the automation is. And again, as Amnon pointed out earlier, the scale is enormous. Even, think about it. You can have easily 100 databases with each with 100 tables, each with 50 columns. So you're up to what? 100 times 100 times 10,000 times 55 million columns, and all kinds of permutations in terms of data traveling from one of those to another, with maybe transformations in the way. The idea that it's not a wise idea to think about using manual processes, manual gathering of metadata at this very granular level. It's not going to work.
Right, and I just want to add to that. As I mentioned, I think that the problem is that you never have the proper time to document everything, and once you finish documenting something, it already has changed. And when you have the ability to get clear map of the data journey within a click of a button for whatever lineage you needed for a use case that you haven't anticipated prior, actually have a software working for you rather than you trying to work very, very hard just to be able to do your job. This is what drove us to establish Octopai. We were frustrated because the time that it took us from a business demand to actual delivery was very, very long and frustrating. And at some point of time, we said, well, you know what? What if we could just click a button and in a magical way, we can have all the lineages that we needed for a use case that they haven't happened yet. So this is why we created this company. This is why we created this capability, even on a personal level, just to have a better life in doing our job.
I think one point, from my experience, Amnon, on that is like doing development work and then getting like yelled at by a user that something's gone wrong, or they think something's gone wrong. They don't actually know. And then what are you going to do in terms of, you're already busy doing stuff, but these, requests to go and investigate what appears to be a problem to the business user are like, very demanding, and they, for your personal life, they're not great. And I don't see how you can really do it without a tool in a short enough time frame to, be able to adequately service these requests.
Yes, absolutely. It's like one of our clients said, well, I used to have a very big book of maps when I drove from one town to another, one state to another. Today, I'm just using Google Maps and Waze. So this is exactly what we're trying to do. Shannon?
So, Amnon, what are the most challenging barriers Octopai encounters? What tool is it not?
Well, what it's not, we can talk a lot about this. I can tell you what it is. It is very, very focused to help business intelligence and analytics groups. It can be anything from a minimum of 5 to 10 people to some of our clients that have 100 and 200 people to just do their job. So at this point of time, our focus is to map and bring intelligence about BI intelligence. I think that what is it that we're planning on doing is that at this point of time, or very, very soon, we're going to be the largest company in the world analyzing thousands of BI systems. And we will use that, to help our clients to even better understand their business intelligence landscape to the point of becoming best practices, and to help them to create a better BI environment for their organization. So while there's a lot of other companies who are dealing with data governance and data quality and data integration, data privacy, this is what we are not. We are focused on the business intelligence and analytics domain that had grew to that point and size that it needs its own dedicated technology that will help them do a better job.
Perfect. I love it. And mostly Oracle shop. Do you have a way to tie lineage and usage metrics from your extractors?
I'm not sure I understand the question, but if we are being asked, do we support Oracle BI systems or landscape, the answer is yes.
And how do we analyze metadata from sources that are not supported by Octopai at this time? Is there a workaround?
Yeah, you can upload the metadata in a different set of format. You can create manual links existing in Octopai. But again, our platform had been designed in the past 5 years to adapt itself to new BI systems, which means that if there's a certain client that is using a certain type of BI tool, BI, I would say BI practice, it takes us anything from 2 weeks to maybe 2 months or top 3 months to adapt our technology to support the BI system that currently is not supported. So, for example, if we have clients that are using Redshift that is about to be supported soon, this is about a month of work. So it's not really rocket science. What we've invested a lot is to have a generic, sophisticated layer of technology that will enable us to adapt new tools as they come in when the customer needs that. So if there's a client here that wants to use Octopai and we do not support one of their systems, we can definitely jump on a call, understand what system it is, and we can actually deliver that within 1 to 3 months. I would be cautious here. But that's the longest that we have to wait. That's it.
I love it. Well, Amnon and Malcolm, again, thank you both so much for this great presentation. But I'm afraid that is all the time we have slotted for this webinar.
That's it. Only 1 hour. Wow. Okay.
1 hour.
Only an hour, Amnon.
Time flies fast. Okay.
We could probably spend days on data lineage, but but thank thank you both. And just a reminder, I will send a follow-up email to all registrants by end of day Thursday with links to the slides and the recording from today's session. So thanks to all of our attendees for being engaged in everything we do. And hope you all have a great day and stay safe out there. Thanks, guys. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.